So in today's video, I would like to present 3 original watch catalogs from the 19th century, and these are from 1887, 1888, 1889, and the last one is from the early mid 1890s. Now, these two are from the same company of Henri Montandon of Besançon. This is Henri Edouard, the son of Henri Louis, who founded this business. So we have both catalogs by Henri, and this one is a catalog of a competitor. This is the Ouvrier Horologer de Besançon, this organization. So this is basically a competitor. We will be able to see what kind of timepieces were offered for sale, what the prices were. And this is quite interesting because we have an earlier version of an Henri Montandon watch offering and this later one. And these are separated by approximately 5 to 7 years. So now in the case of the first one, this is quite interesting because, as usual, we do see an array of medals which were attained by this company. And this is very interesting because we have medals telling us where they took a prize, or, for example, in this very first one is when Henri Edouard graduated from his watch school in Besançon. But we also have very cryptic ones, such as this Naples, 1876, I believe. It's quite hard to read. However, I have not been able to locate the significance of this, what show took place, or what was the occasion of this medal. But nevertheless, we do have these. So let us compare these. This is going to be quite interesting. So essentially, this first catalog of Henri Montandon, we find it being published in December 1887. So this is the tail end of the year. And essentially this was already for 1888. But now, when we examine these pieces, and this is fundamentally just a type of, this is one page, which is folded. So it's more or less a flyer at this point. Now, by the time we get to the later catalog, this is already an entire booklet. And essentially, it's a catalog. And this appears to show the amount of flourishing that had happened between this period and this period. Now, we do know that Henri Edouard started to appear in Paris around 1892, 1893. Therefore, the second catalog could not have been before then. Therefore, this is probably after 1892, most earliest 1893. And but let us look at some of these watches, and we can compare the offering. So now these pieces are in the earlier catalog. These tend to be more lower costs, and in general, these are not precious metals. In this one, we immediately start with golden watches. So this is quite interesting. And these are also golden watches. And we see prices of around 200 francs, 300 francs, 450 francs. So there are many subtle differences in these two catalogs. Now, whereas this earlier catalog, almost all of the pieces in this offering are cylinder escapement pieces, and very few are mentioned in gold, or other noble metals. But then there are some more uh, elaborate uh, luxury models. Now, in this catalog, there are a lot more golden watches, and indeed, we do find a lot more anchor escapement pieces offered in the later catalog. And it is very interesting. Now, these prices are relatively uh, there. There is some difference in the pricing. However, it does not seem to be very dramatically different. That is not. One would expect some variation. However, we don't see these very large leaps in pricing, which is quite interesting. Now, in another moment, we do find in this later catalog, now these are generally remontoirs. However, in the later catalog, there is a key wind piece. And this is quite fascinating because by the early mid 1890s, key winding pieces had been falling out of favor. However, this would have been a very inexpensive model. We see between 16 and 19 francs, and this is with a 3-year guarantee would be 19 francs. For 2-year guarantee, 16 francs. So this is quite interesting that this is the most inexpensive model. It is. We see a larger variety of offerings in the later catalog, whereas the earlier catalog was much more consistent and not as varied or diverse. And indeed, in the second catalog, we do see mention in the beginning that there are other watches on offer here, including Goliath watches. Now, this is from a different producer, so this would be that Henri Montandon was acting as a reseller of these Goliath watches. So he had his own production, and then he had another line of products that were made by another company that he was selling. So this tells us a little bit about his business. Let us continue. So one peculiar watch in the earlier catalog, we find this montre à remontoir, and this is quite interesting. This is held by the pendant side and read such a way so that 12, when you grip it by the pendant, the 12 is on the top. But this watch was recommended for railroad workers. Now, such a watch does not appear in the later catalog. Now, this may be down to a terrible train accident which occurred around 1890, after which time what could officially be called a railroad watch was highly controlled, and it could have been for such reasons that this disappears. This is not exactly clear. This is only a recommendation. This is not called a railroad watch at this point, so there may have been changes in the watch business. But there is also an indication that there is a large choice of chains, silver, base metal, etc., and pendulum clocks and alarm clocks. Now, we do find in the later catalog that he does continue selling alarm clocks and pendulum travel clocks, as well as all kinds of silverware and silver products. So he appears to be continuing with the same line of products in general. So we do find that the business appears to have been a steady offering of these products. Now, the price ranges have not dramatically increased, and it is interesting to note the types of watches that he is offering. That he has a lot more anchor escapements in the later offering, and a lot more precious metal pieces, which is very, very fascinating. So as we compare the two watch catalogs, we have
The older one, which is dating from late 1887, is December, and it's more or less for 1888. Now, the secondary catalog is at least probably 5 to 7 years later. And let us compare and contrast these, and let us look at a very detailed examination of the watches that he's selling. And this is, we're speaking of Henri Montandon. This is Henri Edouard. This business was established by his father, Henri Louis, who came to Besançon in 1850. Now, it is interesting in this first, and this is fundamentally circular. There are only 9 watches, and we're specifically looking at these watches and nothing else, no alarm clocks, etc. But there are 3 of each kind in this offering. That is 3 silver watches, 3 golden watches, and 3 metallic watches. And when we look at the first one, and these are mainly cylinder pieces, we have montre remontoir. So this is a stem winding model. It's a cylinder escapement. Silver, it is basically for men, women, and children. And there is a price of 42 francs. However, all of these watches are discounted at 10%. So the actual price would be 37.80 in francs. And this is the first watch we have. Now the second watch, also remontoir, also cylinder. Now this is a metal piece. It doesn't specify what type of metal was used in the case construction. However, once again, for all men, women, and children, and we find a discounted price of 22.50 in francs. And it is noted that this is a blanc nickelé, so this is a whitened nickel. So this is perhaps related to the metal, that these are indeed nickel watches as opposed to steel, which we will see later. And of these offerings here, this is the cheapest model for men, women, and children. Now we continue with another montre remontoir. This is also cylinder. This is a silver watch for men, women, and children. And we have a discounted price of 49 francs 50 centimes. And we do note that this is described with 10 rubies or jewels, and it has a metallic dial. So if you would want an ordinary dial for this piece, that would be an enamel dial, then you could subtract 1.5 francs from the price. Therefore, you would be able to have that for 48 francs. As we continue, the last of these, which are silver, another remontoir. It's a cylinder escapement, also for all classes of clientele, men, women, and children. And the price is 54 francs. And once again, we have 10 jewels. However, this one is equipped with a golden crown, which is quite interesting. And now there is a note that although this is silver, this is a nielloed silver case, and this is essentially a silver alloy. This is mixed with another metal, so this would not be the pure silver, etc. Now, we continue with these stem winding models, another remontoir, a cylinder piece, but however, this is already a golden watch, and it is a lady's watch. And this is the most expensive, the priciest piece for women. This is already 103.5 francs. So we can see what sort of price level we have for ladies' watches at this time. Now it has the 10 jewels, and the interior of the case and the dust cover, the inside dust cover, are also in gold. This is the priciest ladies' watch in this earlier offering. Now, the next piece we have this is a key winding model. This goes back to an older style, but it is a cylinder escapement. Now, this is a golden case, and it's a ladies' watch. So this is a cheaper alternative to the previous watch. We have it as 68.40 in francs, only 8 jewels, and once again, case and dust cover interior are of gold. Now, very interesting offering here. Next watch, we have chronomètre de poche à remontoir. So this is a stem winding pocket chronometer, and the escapement is anchor. So it's much more precise timing mechanism, but it is a golden watch and it is a man's watch. And this is the priciest watch in this offering indeed. We have the discounter price at 225. However, list price is 250 francs. So you can see what sort of pricing maximum we have here. But this is a double plateau Spirale Breguet. And once again, the box, the watch case is, and the dust cover are gold inside. This is the priciest man's watch. We do have another stem winding, remontoir. This is a second anchor escapement in this offering. So there's only two of these. However, this is a metal. So this would have been most likely some sort of nickel based watch. But we have this at 36 francs. And this is a double box, which means savonnet. This is a hunter case styled, and it's nickeled. And this is recommended for employees of the railroads. This is nous recommandons aux employés de chemin de fer. So this is quite interesting. But at 36 francs for a working man's watch, a railroad worker, and this is with an anchor escapement, this would have been a fairly good purchase. And this is, we can see the pricing level. Now the last watch in this group of 9 from 1887, 1888, it's a montre à quantième à remontoir. So this is a calendar watch, a stem winding calendar watch. Now it does have this cylinder escapement, and it is a metal. Okay, so this is white nickel. But we also have this 40 and a half francs, which is quite decent for a calendar watch. If you think about it, it's not that much more expensive than the previous watch. So these are strong watch offerings for middle class working types from the late 19th century. Now we need to look at the next catalog of offerings, and we will immediately notice that there is a almost six-fold offering. There are six times more watches. Indeed, this watch catalog was not preserved in its entirety. And a lot of the other watches are missing from this, including so-called Goliath watches. And these appear to be specialized, very large watches, which were offered by this Goliath company. So he was probably acting in this case as a reseller for those items. But we do seem to have the bulk of his watches on offering here retained. And so one of the first ones we find is a montre à clef. And this is a key winder. And for the escapement movement type, there is not a real specific description whether this is cylinder or anchor, etc. It says merely mouvement, repassé et réglé. So this is a serviced and regulated movement. And so this key winding watch is a silver watch. Indeed, this style, this type of watch was very predominant in the middle of the 19th century. We see even in the early to mid 1890s, it is still in place. This would be phased out, certainly by around 1900, but before then, by the stem winding models, which were so much more popular by that time. But this is a watch which is only 22 francs with a 2-year guarantee. We see the guarantee 2 ans, but one could purchase 3-year warranty as well at 25 francs. Now, if one wanted ordinary, uh, an ordinary movement with a very light case, this would only cost 15 francs. And indeed, this is the cheapest ladies' watch in this offering. But it is also not recommended by the seller. So he was offering these cheaper watches for clientele, should they need it. And this is probably enabling him to compete with his competitors. This would not have been a quality item. This would have been basically the lowest rung on the offering scale. Let us continue with montre-montoire, which we see again, repassé et réglé. So this is a movement which is serviced and regulated. It's a silver watch. It's for ladies, and we see indeed four different categories based on the guarantee that you could purchase. So 25 francs for 2 years, 28 for 3 years, and 32 for 4 years. So up to a 4-year guarantee period. And if once again, if you wanted a plain Jane, more or less, offering ordinary movement and very light box, not very strong, then this could be had for 15 francs as well. And it is to be noted that this watch does not include an engraving. Like if one would want certain engraving on this would not be included in the price. So this is usually stipulated where it is not an option, but there are rates for engraving on watches which this is not included. However, this is on this page 14, which we do not have, so it would have probably been a franc and a half or something of this variety. Now we continue to look at these various different types of watches which he's offering. This is a very huge. Indeed, the choice selection has exploded compared to the earlier watch, and we should basically recognize that this is an indication of his flourishing, of his success. He was certainly taking more risk by offering a huger offering, but his production in Besançon, which is where that was located, this was actually he had the warehouse workshops, etc. there, which were producing, and his selling comptoir was in Paris on Rue de Terrain number 98. But we see these watches. We see another watch. We're getting basically previous to this, similar to the previous one, with a 2-year guarantee of 38 francs, then 3-year 42, and 4-year 46 francs. So we're going through these different offerings. Another key winder with this serviced and regulated movement. It's a silver watch, ladies, 25 francs with the lowest guarantee. And it's interesting that the lowest guarantee tend to be for these silver watches 2 years, but one could have up to 4 years in general. Now let us look at the next watch. And once again, we see this is the type of watch, and we have a much more higher price here with starting at 34 and going to 42. This is a hunter case piece, and it had a golden crown. So this was a much more deluxe version. And we have the last silver ladies watch, another stem winder, starting at 40 francs and with 50 francs for the 4-year guarantee. And this is interesting, genre Louis. So we're speaking of Louis XV. So this is Louis XV style, very small watch, but this does not have an engraving. So this is quite interesting that based on one's taste, one could select one watch from among several options, and this is really interesting. But now we go to children's watches, and we have a key winder for children. It's in a silver case, and starting at 22 francs with a 2-year guarantee, but ranging up to 28. And the rest of these for children are the stem winding models. So we have These are silver, and then we see the price ranges between 25 and 32. In general, these tend to be without an engraving. So let us now move to these men's watches from this period, and we have a couple key winders. Basically, these are, once again, the movement escapement variety is not enumerated here. One could surmise that these are cylinders. However, this is not clear. This may not be the case, but they are serviced and regulated in a silver box. And we have the cheapest man's watch starting with a 2-year warranty at 22. So it's basically matching the ladies' watches for this time. And once again, we do notice that no 4-year warranties are available for these plain Jane models. But one could have an even cheaper 15 franc model with an ordinary movement and a very light box. In other words, not very durable or strong. Not recommended by the seller. And this is the cheapest man's watch. So that tells you, for 15 francs, if one needed, one could have a watch. So this speaks to the affordability. Now, another key winder we have, and there are only a couple of these with the silver case, we find between 25 and 32 francs. And this is a hunter case, and but très fort. So this is a very strong case, and the movement is first quality, première qualité, mouvement première qualité. So this tells one that between 25 and 32 francs, one could have a very sturdy watch in a silver case. Now moving on to the remontoirs, we have several different options here. And once again, one could have for as low as 15 francs an option here. This would, of course, be without engraving. And we see a similar watch in this category starting from 28 francs going to 36. And this is mentioned recouvrement. This seems to be with a cover. It's not clear, is this some sort of a leather cover that comes with the watch, or a bag of some sort of a holding case. And this is also without an engraving. But now we move into a very interesting offering. This is a stem winding remontoir with an anchor movement, répété et réglé. So this is serviced and regulated silver watch for men, and we're between 30 to 40 francs, depending upon the guarantee. Additionally, we have another stem winder, serviced and regulated, silver men's watch, 38 francs with a 2-year warranty, ranging to 46 francs. And this is argent niellé, so this is nielloed silver. And additionally, another option pictured here with this is a silver men's watch, and we have between 34 to 42 francs. But now we see some very interesting offerings, and these are stem winders which have the anchor escapement, but with chronometric or a chronometer movement. This is a much more precise mechanism. These are silver watches for men. No 2-year warranties available, only 3-year warranties. For the first, this is the cheapest version. This is starting at 68 francs. And then there is one with an 80 franc price with a 5-year warranty. And the notices here are réglage montre soigné. So this is a fine regulated watch. This would have been a very high quality piece, and it has a hunter case. So this is a very interesting offering here. Another such silver watch, which has anchor escapement and chronometric or chronometer movement. So once again, highly precise. We do see 3 different offerings, and this is actually 60 francs for a 3-year guarantee, 75 francs for 5 years, and indeed a watch with a 10-year guarantee for 90 francs. Once again, réglage montre soigné. So this is a very fine regulated watch. This is without engraving. Once again, engraving could be had for an extra fee, but this seems to be the highest quality pieces among the silver watches in these last two, these chronometer movements. So now we are examining the golden watches and other watches that are on offer in this second catalog, and we have a series of stem winding montre or remontoir, and these are generally with movements which are not, once again, clear. Are they cylinder or anchor escapements? However, they are serviced and regulated, repassé et réglé. And this word repassé actually means to iron. So a repasseur was an ironer, and usually these individuals that were able to both fabricate and repair watches, they were called repasseurs et remonteurs. But so these are repassés et réglés, and we have a series of gold watches for ladies, and we see various different offerings here. We see for 60 francs, and all of these are with a 3-year guarantee minimum. So we see the 60 franc option, or for 40 francs with an ordinary movement and a very light box. This is a hunter class piece, and it notes this force moyenne. So this is with average force that it could withstand. Now the next piece is another stem winding piece with a similar movement. It's a golden watch for ladies at 70 francs. This is a boîte plus forte. This is the strongest case, more or less. Then we have another variety with a 3-year warranty for 68 francs, or for 46 francs with an ordinary movement and a very light box. Now for 80 francs, we have a golden ladies watch with the 3-year warranty. This is a hunter case and boîte plus forte. So this is the strongest case available in gold. Now we have a 90 franc option here, and this is a recouvrement. This appears to be with a cover of some sort, a carrying case of some variety, it would appear. And what très fort. This is a very strong box. However, it's not exactly clear. This is probably less strong than the what plus fort. Now we start to see interesting options here. We have montre remontoir with ancre, escapement, so anchor, and movement chronomètre. So this is a chronometric movement which is very precise. And once again, it's in gold. It's the latest watch in 175 francs with the 3-year guarantee. And boîte forte. So this is merely a strong box, or case rather. Now we have a series of different golden ladies' watches. And these range between 175 francs with boîte fort. We have 125 francs, ciselure, Louis XV. So this is so-called chiseled in the Louis XV style. This would be the decoration and style of this watch. As we can see, this is a hunter case piece, a boîte fort. And we also have a golden ladies' watch for 115 francs. And once again, a recouvrement. We have décor or and couleur. So this would have more colors, and this would be golden decorations. And once again, ciselé is sort of this style, this so-called chiseling, as it were. And we have another remontoir, which is a golden watch for 140 francs, 3-year guarantee. Once again, the Louis XV style. Pont de médaillon. This is a sort of medallion shape or style background. Peinture. So this indicates painting. This would have been a painted dial, if you will. And pearl fine. So this is in with fine pearls. This is a hunter case watch. But there are also cheaper golden watches for women, including a 110 franc piece or 95 francs with a little larger diameter. So the larger the watch, the cheaper it was, because the smaller the watches were, the finer they were, and the much more expensive to construct. But this is once again Louis XV. And this uni, this was appears to be something with regards to the engraving included, or this whole package, more or less. Which generally these are engraved unless otherwise stipulated. And this, of course, this engraving could be had at an extra price or a tariff. But we have a 100 franc watch in gold, en graine et semi-diamant. So these are very small diamonds, and this is a 100 case piece. So we see what sort of background and decorations were available. But these women's watches tend to scale up, and indeed, we find in this later 1890s period that women's watches were much more expensive. And we see how these are scaling up: 150 francs for a 3-year warranty again, or 135 francs with a little bit larger diameter. And these are, once again, this is a 100 case piece with the previous decorations, but also fond étoile diamant. This is a starry diamond background. And we have a golden watch for 200 francs. Once again, Louis XV style, which seems to be very popular, and fine pearls. And this, generally, these were pearls around the edges. But we have gone from 200 to 300 franc watch in gold. Now the movements, there is no commentary on what sort of movement this has. This is left totally blank, but one would assume that these are a little bit finer movements, although it is not stipulated here. And we do have a cheaper variety at 260 francs in this, and this has fond émail, so this is an enamel background. But the previous one at 300 francs, we do have this fond émail et joli diamant. So this with an enamel dial and a diamond, a beautiful diamond. So this would have been a large diamond on the case of the hunter case of the savonnet. The most expensive ladies' watch we have for 450 francs, and indeed this is the most expensive watch in the entire catalog. 450 francs for this ladies' golden watch. It's merely repassé et réglé. We do not know what the escapement type is, but this is a hunter case watch, fond pavé tout pearl or diamond. So you can have surrounded in pearls or diamonds, depending upon which one you wanted. But this is the most expensive watch in the catalog at this point. But we also have a 200 franc golden watch in the Louis XV style, and très petite. So this is very small. Now, the last ladies' watch we have, it's a 100 franc piece, à facette nue. So once again, this is a different choice for the ladies' watches. But now we see the men's watches that are in gold. These are all, once again, remontoirs or stem winding pieces. We have, now these are indeed for, this is for hommes et garçonnets. This is for men and boys, or it could be men and children. But these are starting at 100 francs. And we have 75 franc version with an ordinary movement and light case. Now, for a stronger case, you could have the same watch for 115 francs, or for a very strong case, 130 francs. So this would have been the most durable watch in this category, and this indeed is a hunter case watch. Other golden watches for men include an anchor escapement option here with a chronometric or chronometer movement. And this is 190 francs with a 3-year guarantee, or 5-year guarantee at 215 francs. And this is mentioned, what fort repassé et réglé. So this is a strong case. which has been serviced and regulated for the watch. And now we have other golden options, including, once again, repassé réglé movement. And this is for 130 francs. And this is what bonne force. So this is a good force. This could withstand good force. And this is a 100 case piece. Now, if you wanted the strongest one, strongest case, you could get one for 145 francs in this category. Boîte très forte. So these are, once again, 100 case with the option of having at 80 francs a watch in this style with an ordinary movement and a light case. Now we have a very interesting option here with this 165 franc 5-year guarantee. So no less than 5 years for this. This is and boîte très forte. Now we have several interesting options in these last of the gold men's watches. These are montre remontoir again, anchor escapement, repassé réglé, and this is 150 francs with the 3-year one guarantee, or for 5 years 175 francs. This could also be had for at the lower price of 90 francs with an ordinary movement and a light case. Now we start getting to the most expensive men's watches. Now we have anchor escapement with a chronometer movement. Once again, this is a gold watch for men and boys or children for 200 francs with 3 years guarantee, or 225 francs for 5 years guarantee. And this is a 100 case watch. But the most expensive men's watches in this last catalog, we have anchor escapement stem winder with a véritable chronomètre. This is a veritable chronometer itself. Indeed, this would be a very precise watch, very precise mechanism. This is a golden watch. The price was 250 francs, and this is still 200 francs below the women's most expensive watch. It should be remembered. But if you wanted the 5-year warranty, then it was 300 francs. But still, this is significantly under the price for ladies' watches in gold. So this is quite interesting. This is réglage de précision. So this is a very precise sort of the réglage is very precise for this watch. So regulating. This is with regards to the regulation of the watch and its actual functioning. Now we have a series of remontoirs, which are acier. Now this is a steel watch, and it should be noted that the steel watches, previously the metallic watches which were offered were white nickel. Now we have steel, which is interesting. And this is described with the first option we have, mouvement soigné, repassé, réglé. So this is like a fine movement, which is serviced and regulated. So we have a steel-cased watch, and this is for all categories, men, women, and children. And we have 2-year warranty, 30 francs, or 3 years, 35 francs. And all of these steel watches have this boîte oxydée noire. So this is a black oxidized sort of tint or case. So these are all black tinted steel watches. The following watch is merely movement repassé réglé in acier, the case, and we have 25 francs or 30 francs, and once again, boîte oxydée noire. However, we do see several cheaper versions of these watches for 18 francs or 22 francs for 3-year guarantee. And the cheapest watch here is 16 francs in this style, or 20 for the 3-year guarantee. However, there is a key winder available. So this would be the cheapest key winder and the cheapest watch in this latest catalog, or the later catalog. So we have 16 francs. So if you think about it, 16 francs, this is with the minimum, the 2-year guarantee. You could still get a watch for this price. And indeed, this is a 100 case. So we see boîte Oxydé Noir, and we see that it is a 100 case option, but there is the 19 franc option for 3-year guarantee. But moving over to, we do have a stem winding remontoir in this category, and it is also at this price. However, this is a hunter case watch, so it has the extra shell around it, but it's still the same price as the key winding previous version. So we do have these. There is another stem winding steel watch for 16 francs for 2-year guarantee. We also have an option for the 3 years at 20 francs. And then we have a 4-year guarantee for 24 francs. Now there are in these last couple watches this Il se fait depuis, so at 12 francs. This is not exactly, it is made sense, or this is some sort of, whether it be a trade-in, or this is something to do with, this is either a trade-in or a refurbished or something of this variety, but this is another price option, and this is most likely for previous clients. This is not exactly clear what is meant by this, but in this last offering, we have an interesting anchor escapement movement with chronometric movement, and this is for all men, women, and children in steel, black oxidized case, and we have a minimum 3-year warranty, 35 francs, or 4 years for 40 francs. And once again, we have this 22 franc option, il se fait depuis. So we're left a little bit to guess what this could be. And if you have a better idea than I do, please submit in the comments section what you believe this could be. But I hope this gives us a really good idea of what sort of prices and what sort of watches one could enjoy during this early mid 1890 period by this French watchmaker. Now these watches were produced in Besançon at Henri Montandon's factory, and now he had moved his selling premises, his comptoir, to Paris at Rue de Touraine, number 98. Yet his production stayed and remained in Besançon, and indeed this area was, there were a lot of small workshops making watches at this time. So it is interesting. We do find his catalog listing for his factory or his atelier in Besançon. We can see that this was under his belt, and it's listed as Henri Montandon or H. Montandon in Besançon. And so it is interesting that he was producing these watches, and he was producing, we can see a huge selection of different options. This is quite fascinating, but this shows us how prior to 1900 he had really been flourishing, and indeed he would have been in the watch business until at least the 1920s. We find him, I believe, until 1929. So this is up until the Great Depression. We find him in business at this Rue de Touraine in the French almanacs. Now he himself would die in 1941. So this would have been during World War II. But he probably, during the Depression, it's not exactly clear when he stopped selling his watches, but probably during the 30s. Certainly by the 1930s, he would probably have retired by this time. So I hope that this is an extremely helpful and up-close forensic analysis of what watches this company was offering. And we do see this earlier and later stage of this watch business. Now, Henri Montandon, we have more documents related to his business than any of these other watch companies. We have an original watch guarantee and letter of guarantee and invoice from a sale from 1881. So this would have been the son. It says it is indeed he is signing H. Montandon fils. So this is Henri Montandon's son. So this is the son of Henri Louis who established the business. And we do have the guarantee and sales invoice. We have these two catalogs. And indeed, there is from the father's earlier watchmaking, we do have from the 1860s a note for a a part that he had provided to the Archbishop of the city, the cardinal, and this was for a piece to an astronomical clock in the church in the city. There's a large astronomical clock. I believe is it Saint Jean, the church, but it's upstairs in that church, and he provided a rotating sphere of some very expensive part for this clock. But this is the father. This is from the 1860s. This is for the father. Now, this Henri, he graduated from the watchmaking school in Besançon in 1876, and he would have between 1876 and 1880, 1881, basically taken over the business from the father. Now the father died in 1884. The first couple days was January 2nd of 1884, so he would have been retired by the early 1880s, most definitely. So I hope this was of interest, and thank you for your attention.
So here we have, in 1889, competitor, the Ouvrier Horloger de Besançon. This was a competitor organization. And we have some very fascinating pieces. Régulateur, le régulateur. These generally have names. Le Besançon, le Médaille. These would have been made by a collective, or almost a guild. And these are various different watchmakers who are enrolled in this organization, and they have very low prices on a lot of these pieces. And this does give us the indication that Henri Montandon was definitely more of a exclusive watch producer. Now, there are a lot of bracelet variations in this, which is quite fascinating. Now, bracelet watches, this predates trench watches, but this would have been to wear on the wrist. So these are early offerings in this line, predating the trench watch or the wristwatch, modern day wristwatch. They also have various larger pieces, clocks, travel clocks, alarm clocks, and chains. So we do find a very similar offering that the competition was selling very similar products. Now, here we have a leather adaptation for a pocket watch to wear it on the wrist. And we have a watch in the form of a crucifix. So once again, we have some variety here, and this has to be remembered, a large collective of individuals. No doubt there would have been specialization within these watchmakers, and they would have been making on various different principles, etc., but with their own stylistics and tastes. So we do have a very large selection here. But once again, when one compares the prices, these are significantly cheaper than Henri's pieces. Therefore, it must be basically assumed that Henri was operating a much more luxury niche. And there is a similarity. However, his prices are higher, and therefore his clientele would have been different sections of society. Now, the father had been selling to the clergy, the judiciary, judges, and he also served the railroads of France, which is quite interesting. Indeed, the father had a patent for a chemin de fer watch. This was a railroad watch, and this would have been during the 1860s. However, the son does not seem to have continued with that watch. But this is just a brief overview of these old catalogs from the end of the 19th century, and I hope that you found this a little bit informative, but also to see these antique documents and what sort of offerings they were having. Now, this should be noted that they are this ouvrier horologer de Besançon. They are claiming a annual production of 45,000 watches. So this is very large scale at that time, and they were located at number 2 Rue Saint-Antoine à Besançon. So they were producing on a very large scale, and indeed this would have been much larger than the scale of Henri Montandon, who perhaps it's not clear what his production was, but it must not be more than 10% of this, perhaps most probably even less than that. So I hope this was a helpful instruction, and I look forward to any feedback that you have. Thank you. Bye-bye.